Hey everybody, welcome back to the Battlefield Banter podcast. We're your host, Cody Black, and I'm here with my main man, Big John Sutton. Big Bad John. Hey, I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody that's tuned in to our podcast here. I think we've got up to about 295 subscribers now. We're looking good, and everybody's tuning in. I just want to tell everybody thank you. Great comments coming in. I just want to give one other big shout out to Miss Emily Sutton. It was her birthday yesterday. I think she turned 29 years old. So I just want to say happy birthday, Emily. I know John treated you well yesterday. So on that note, but yeah, Big John. Oh wait, before we get into John, I just want to remind everybody that the Texas Longhorns lost yesterday. So it made me proud. Alan Cook, Big Alan Cook, he tunes into our podcast every week. He's like, hey, Cody, you're always wearing this Oklahoma Sooner stuff. How much stuff you got? I got a lot. I wore black today because we are in mourning after that loss. We're looking like complete trash. So as long as the Longhorns lost and Alabama, I'm fine with it. So I made my day yesterday.
Yeah, I guess it was a good thing that Oklahoma didn't play yesterday to ruin your weekend.
No, they did play.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, I mean, they were on the field. I wouldn't say they played. They were just on the field with South Carolina. So.
Oh, that's right. They did play. How'd that game go?
Well, it was not pretty. My son actually drove down there with his girlfriend and to the game to watch it, and I think they left about the third quarter. So that's a waste of money on my part for even letting them go down there using my money to pay for gas. And,
is that the longest road trip he's kind of taken solo?
Oh yeah, I mean I think he's been to Branson a couple times, but I mean we used to within basketball we're going to Kansas City, Memphis, all in place. I used to make his butt drive us everywhere, so he's used to driving in cities and stuff like that. So.
Good. So how's the rest of your weekend been going?
Hey man, tell you what, can't ever complain when you're off from work. So that's been going pretty good, and the weather's starting to change here, which is this is my type of weather. Finally get to open the windows for a little bit and smell the fresh air and all that good stuff. So not too bad. Got a lot of stuff coming up here. I think we're 3 weeks away, 2 weeks away from the election, so that's coming up. I know for us here in Missouri, that Proposition 3 or whatever it is, I keep seeing a bunch of signs about that. It's been a hot topic around here too. So quite a bit of discussions about that here in the last few days. So very interesting.
Yeah, no, it should be pretty interesting to see how everything kind of plays out. The elections sounds like things are going kind of back and forth and maybe kind of swinging back in Trump's favor based off the latest Vegas odds. So kind of exciting there.
You can't go wrong with Vegas odds. And I seen today, he's in McDonald's in Pennsylvania serving up French fries. I mean, he's cooking them. He's in his apron, looking sharp out there. But who knows where this thing's really going to go. I know there's just been a lot of talk, especially here with that Proposition 3 or Amendment 3. I can't remember what it's called. But I'm telling you, John, especially you having daughters, really dig and read that thing, man. There is some fine print in there you need to read about, dude.
Yeah, and speaking on the topic, I saw there was a clip. I don't know if it was from Friday or Saturday, but I guess at a Kamala Harris rally, she was talking about how Trump had appointed 3 justices to the Supreme Court, and they did exactly what he wanted with overturning Roe v. Wade. And some lady from the audience that was there to support her yelled out, "Praise Jesus." And Kamala actually heard it and I guess kind of called her out right there on the spot from the podium and told her that she was at the wrong rally and she needed to be at the rally down the street. So, it's not usually a good idea to be turning off your supporters and directing them to the other candidate, but we'll take them.
Well, especially if someone says "Praise Jesus," my God goes. To where we're at in this society now. So I don't know. It's going to be a hot election, that's for sure. So just make sure you get out there and vote, no matter where you stand. I mean, at the end of the day, we did fight for that right. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. Use that right that many people fought for. So at the end of the day, it'll work out. And I mean, we always, come out ahead one way or another. So.
Yeah, well, Cody, this episode is just gonna be you and I again, and we're gonna be kind of diving into your background a little bit.
Oh,
So we'll just get yeah, should be interesting.
oh,
So we'll just
about
go
as
ahead.
I'm about as interesting as a newspaper. Not much there.
I'm not. I don't know. Anytime I'm in a meeting with you and you start to speak, I start to listen up to see what's about to come out next. So
Because you're worried about what's coming up next.
things can get interesting real quick with you. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, we'll see.
So just to kick it off, just tell us a little bit about yourself, just kind of overall. Who is Cody Black?
Man, Cody Black is from the great state of Oklahoma. Born and raised, I graduated from a school called Canadian Oklahoma. I think we had about 18 in my class. Raised by a single mom and my grandparents. It was, they did a phenomenal job providing me with everything I needed. And, that, but I wasn't too good at school. I was too busy with the girls and the party life, which drove my mom crazy. I think I hit a cop, took off on my mom's car at 14, T-boned the cop. That was a fun experience. And I might have been intoxicated at a time or two and actually drove through the wall of my mom's garage into her bedroom. That was pretty much me in high school. So I really had no desire. Well, I thought I wanted to be a highway patrol. Uh, and at that time, I think they come out to where you had to have a 4-year degree. I was like, yeah, college ain't for me. So I joined the United States Army and did 21 and a half years, and come to find out college was a big part of the United States Army. Caught me off guard there too. So, I did 21 and a half years and had a great time doing it. But I'm glad I'm retired and I have been set free.
Did you have any jobs growing up while you were still in high school?
Did I have any jobs? Well, I did construction for a guy a couple summers. It was only a couple summers. I think I fell off the roof about 3 times, and yeah, after the second summer, he's like, yeah, I can't risk having you. I mean, but at that time I was, I'd sneak off at lunch and have a few cold beers in my in my truck, and then go back to work. So I was 17 years old. No,
Yeah,
other than that, other jobs besides that.
you said you grew up with a single mom, but you had your grandparents in your life. What kind of impact did your grandfather play as far as being that male role model for you?
Oh, my grandpa, he played a huge role in it. I think, my dad, I think he popped smoke on me when I was around 2. It was mainly my grandfather was the only real male figure I had in my life. And he owned a farm. I shouldn't say farm, it was a ranch. He raised Black Angus cattle, so I grew up on that ranch all the way up until he probably got in his 70s, 60s, 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And then he sold it and moved out to the lake, and we moved out there with him. But he taught me a lot of work ethic and values and all that great stuff. And I remember going down to the local little convenience store there. They had a coffee shop in there, and I remember him. They'd go down there every morning, and I'd sit there and listen to him and his buddies talk about, what they did in the service and the fun they had, and probably stories that my grandfather didn't want me to hear. But I heard them, and I'm like, well, that's what I want to do too. He always talked about being a military policeman and all that. So, what was funny was my grandfather was a real religious man, diehard Baptist. Just diehard. And he made it seem like, he was straight and narrow. I found all these army pictures where he's drinking beer and just really going on a good time. So I'm like, I want to do that too.
Yeah. So, growing up on that farm, that ranch, was there any specific chore or anything like that you had to do that, you wish that you could have had your kids do, the impact of that chore responsibility had on you?
There was no, my grandfather entrusted me to do some things, but I usually, end up messing it up somehow. And I'll give you a prime example. This dude had, I'd feed the cattle, I'd go with him, feed the cattle. He had a total knee operation once, and He's like, hey, he just bought this brand new slick Chevy pickup, Silverado. Slick, man. Why? He's like, whatever you do. He said, don't take my new truck out to feed the cattle. Got it, Pops, What do? I'm like, I'm going to listen to the radio because that old 1975 Ford out there, it ain't got nothing, So here I get in it. The minute I park it and start feeding, one of the cows bump into it and put a big old dent on the backside. But I guess the one chore that always comes back to mind is when I'd have to go put out hay for the cattle. My grandfather had this old Case tractor. I don't know why he thought this was such a great idea. I guess to teach me some lessons and not driving fast or whatever. But I'd have to drive this old Case tractor with a round bale of hay on the back out in the pasture. One of the pastures you had to take Highway 113 to get to. So I'm out there on the highway, 10, 11 years old, on this Case tractor. No brakes. The only way you could slow this thing down was with the clutch. You had to pump the clutch to get it to slow down. So that's one thing, I wish my kids could, have experience. But I spoiled the shit out of my kids. Way too much. That's my problem.
I've seen you work with your hands. So I mean, I'm sure you were quite useful to have on the ranch. Because there was a makeshift. It wasn't a chicken coop, but it might as well have been a chicken coop. I saw you constructed. You were using hand measurements, and when I say hand measurements, you were measuring the distance between your hands and then walking over to the board to make your cuts.
Yeah, so he didn't teach me that. That's just me being lazy at the time. So I got close enough.
So, I mean, that's what did you say, like 18, 19 kids in your graduating class? I mean,
yeah, that's it. Probably half of them went to prison at some time or joined the military, one or two.
I thought I grew up in a small town. I think we had a little over 200 in our graduating class. So, 18, 19, that seems pretty small. Everybody kind of know everybody's business.
Oh, shoot, the teachers knew, everybody knew. So, I mean, that was one thing about it too. Like growing up in that small town, like if you got in trouble at school before you got home, they already heard about it. So I'm never gonna forget. I got caught dipping tobacco one time. It was in my coach's class or my coach's wife's class. Her name was Miss Brown, Jennifer Brown. I got caught dipping. She sends me to the office. The principal at the time was old Randy Wasson. His name was Randy Wasson, and he's like, "Hey, Jack, you got two choices. You either get SWATs or I'll call your grandpa. Give me the SWATs. Do not call my grandpa. Do not call my grandpa." So I took the SWATs. I didn't want to get it home. So
do they still find out?
Oh yeah, I still found out. So it don't matter.
Well, kind of growing up in that small town, did any of that, or I guess it sounds like maybe your grandfather's experiences in the military may have influenced you or played a part, but what kind of led you to want to join the military and kind of where you were in life? Was this, before September 11th, afterwards? And
no, I think what really drove me to join the military was September 11th. I know you were in before. I think we talked about the reasons why you joined, but I think mine was a couple of reasons. 9/11 happened, and I did want out of that small town environment. I wanted to see different things, so the military at that time was the best choice for me. And as soon as I turned 17, I had my mom sign for me, and that was it. I was on that path from 17 till I retired.
So once you joined the military, how'd your family kind of react to you wanting to join the military?
Well, my mom was completely on board because I'm pretty sure she knew I was an idiot, and she's like, "We gotta try to fix this guy right now." My grandfather was not so happy about it. I understand at the time I didn't understand why. I mean, but now being a father, I kind of understand. I don't want my kids joining the military, and it has nothing to do with me not wanting them to serve the nation. It's just you don't want your kids to get hurt. You know what I mean? Like there's a greater chance of that happening. He kind of had that same mentality. So when I left for basic training, he's like, I can't even watch this. He took off to another state. I think he went down to Arkansas or something, pulled this camper down there. He's like, I don't even want to be around for this. So it took him probably a year and a half to finally come around to to accept it. Like, all right, this wasn't so bad after all.
And what is it that he did when he was in the military?
He was a military policeman too.
Also,
Well, let me tell you this. Here's a crazy story, right? So, my grandfather was probably like my best friend, but he was stationed over in Japan. And he always talked about this lady over there. I can't remember her name now. It was like Honda Accord or I don't know, Mitsubishi or something. But it was something like that, right? I don't know, some lady, Yoko something. I don't know. Anyway, but
just stop. You're gonna get us canceled before we even get started.
It was something like that. But he always talked about this. It was like his first love and this. And he went to Korea and he got injured, and they flew him like back to the States or something after he was hurt, so he never got to meet up with this girl again. But he's 70. Oh, he's in his 80s. It had to be probably 2-3 years before he died. He's sitting at home one day, and this guy, he gets a call from this guy. He's like, "Hey, I think you're my father." He's like, "What?" Yeah, this guy, his name's Clyde, did that DNA and Ancestry.com or whatever it is, right? Well, his DNA and my mom's DNA matched as siblings. Come to find out, my grandfather, got this girl pregnant, never knew about it. She didn't know how to track him down. She actually married another service member, moved to California. And my grandfather found out 3 years before he died he had a son. I mean, they did this big article and stuff about it. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. Yeah.
Did they get a chance to meet before your grandfather passed?
Yeah, they met twice, I think. They got to meet twice.
Did you get a chance to?
I got to meet him once. So he looks like a little Japanese version of my grandpa. So.
You guys stay close or connected or?
No, that dude. Once my grandfather died, I don't think I've heard hide or hair from him. To be honest, I don't think anybody in the family. Last I heard, he took off back to Japan and over there and making something. I don't know. He's like in the skincare industry or something like that.
Well, I mean, you didn't find out about your grandfather till later, but were there any kind of stories or adventures he told you that you just kind of always kept in the back of your mind about his service?
I mean, not really. My grandfather, he kept that stuff. He got injured in Korea, and he just kind of kept that stuff close hold. The only stories I remember is him talking about, when he was stationed like at Fort Leonard Wood, going, how he would sneak into the officers' club. And, there was an old girl down here in Waynesville. He called old Action Jackson. He'd link up with old Action Jackson. So, I'm sure she was a prostitute, but who knows?
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll dive into kind of your experiences and whatnot here in a minute, but are you kind of the same way as far as not talking about some of the experiences that you had with your kids and whatnot, or are you a little bit more open than what you think your grandfather was?
Well, I think I'm a lot more open because my kids pretty much lived a lot of it with me. You know what I mean? Like they were at each duty station. The deployment stuff you really don't get into with, and if that time comes where they want to know, we'll just see how that goes. I mean, right now they don't ask a lot of questions. They're 20 and 18 and 16, so they're more worried about what's on TikTok and Insta Snap and how I can do this dance and all this. That's all they worry about.
So, let's just dive into kind of your career here and just kind of give us an overview of what Cody's Black career looked like, what your assignments were, kind of job positions.
Cody Black's career, how to sum that up? Well, I enlisted as an MP. I went to Fort Leonard Wood for basic and AIT. First duty station was Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I actually chose that duty station because the guy at MEPS completely lied to me. The dude literally told me, he's like, "Oh man, you build handle bar fights and do all this cool law enforcement stuff." It wasn't the case at all. 14 days after I get there, you're on the bird direct. So, but it was the greatest. If I hadn't went to that company, the 194 MP company, I don't think I would have stayed in the Army. I had some great leadership from the get-go. And it actually continued to be a good set of NCOs and officers there the whole time. I spent 5 years there, so that was actually the first place where I met Sergeant Major Woodring. He became our S3 Sergeant Major right before I left. So then I went from there to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where I became a United States Army drill sergeant. So that was fun. Not so much. It was some of the worst hours I've ever worked in my life. But I had fun training. That was a great part. Like training those dudes. I really had a passion for it, and I met one of my best buds in the world, old Matt Norville. He was a reserve drill sergeant. He came in down there, and we had a pretty good time. So they were like, "Hey, you're coming off the trail. Where would you like to go? Here's your options. These are kind of places for you to get a break or whatever." I was like, "Hey, man, Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. Let's do that." So I went to Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, and they assigned me to the 558 MP company. I went over there and they said, "You're going to be in 3rd Platoon." I got there like, "Hey, by the way, the platoon sergeant over there, he does not want you at all, so be prepared for, this guy to treat you like crap," which he did. He really did the whole time he was there.
Sounds like a real dick.
Yeah, he was something. Nah, ended up being all right. Did a couple years as squad leader there, and a platoon sergeant for 2 years. Then I came back to Fort Linwood, where I was SGL for senior leader course. Became the senior SGL. Did some first sergeant time there. Then I made the worst decision of my life and became a warrant officer in the Criminal Investigation Division, which is the worst organization in the United States Army. Mark that down out there, everybody. CID is the worst organization in the Army. They do not care about their people. They do not care about leadership. They do not care about anything. So write that down. Cody Black, Codye Black. Tell Quantico I said that. They're trash. And that's how my career ended. So
Is all your retirement paperwork finalized?
it is finalized. It is finalized. So
All right.
it's been that way. I've been officially retired now for a while. So I'm excited about
So
that.
you said you did drill. Was that at Leonard Wood or did you do that at Fort Sill?
No, I did that at Fort Sill. I think at that time it's me and maybe 2 other MPs that actually went there. It was a good time because it was all male soldiers. There was no females. It was the best thing ever.
Did you put in that? I mean, I know you were from Oklahoma. Did you put in a request to stay there at Fort Sill, or just kind of happened by chance?
No, it kind of happened by chance. They were supposed to start picking up females. So they were trying to get MOSs that had worked with females there, just not, besides infantry and field artillery. So that's how I got assigned there. But we didn't pick up females till probably halfway through my 2nd year.
What was the biggest takeaway from your time there as a drill sergeant?
Biggest takeaway was I don't know if I had a big takeaway. I mean, I guess it would just be how fun training is when it's done the right way. I guess if that makes sense. I think we get in sometimes they get in a mode of, even in a line company, of just nonchalantly training. So that's fun to teach people. That was my thing. Like I love teaching the people coming in new things and stuff that they hadn't learned. And I know whatever I was giving them, what information I was giving them or teaching them, depended on their success once they left. So it was all about the presentation.
So how many deployments did you end up having?
2, 3. I think 1, 3. And then we did wasn't really a deployment. I mean, they said it was, but we did that mission at Guam. I think you were there for that when I left. So that was kind of fun.
Where were you? Where all did you go for your deployments besides Guam?
It was Iraq. Was in Karbala, Mosul, Talafar, Baghdad. Yeah, it's pretty much Baghdad. And, yeah, pretty much that's it, man. Never had a chance to go to Afghanistan.
What kind of missions were you guys doing in Iraq?
It was a normal, I guess, MP stuff. We did a little bit of combat patrols. We did. We was at a cop for a while. We did detainee ops. Just a little bit of everything, I guess. I mean, pretty similar to what you talked about in yours was our mission.
Did you guys do like the IP training and
We
whatnot?
did. We
Train
did
the
do some
IPs.
IP station. That was always a debacle in itself. So, it was a good time. Like the videos you see online where these guys are trying to do PT, that is no joke. That's exactly how they look at everything they do. You cannot get them on the same page. That's why that country never wins at anything in sports. They're uncoordinated. I don't know. It was like, you know, those people were just born with no coordination or anything over there. It's so weird.
You talked about going CID was the worst decision of your career.
God, no.
What led up to you wanting, because you had been a Sergeant First Class, I don't know if you had came out on the Master Sergeant list or not yet when you had put in for Warrant Officer, but you ended up coming out on the Master Sergeant selection list. Kind of what went into the decision to even go?
Man, I tell you, I blame Brad Cross for this, Sergeant Major Brad Cross. I don't know, really, I can't recall how it happened. Somehow me and him were talking, and it come out like, hey, you're moving up in the enlisted ranks. You're not going to be able to train soldiers anymore like you're used to. It comes a lot more admin stuff, which it does. Like, man, at this time he was the sergeant major over there for CID. He's like, dude, we're needing warrant officers over here. With some leadership skills, we were really lacking. Like, there's none. So I'm like, I can meet the qualifications or whatever. So I'm like, I really didn't want to, and then he finally talked me into it. So I did it, and then when I got to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, I was like, oh God, these guys couldn't lead a horse to water. Because they don't, that organization, those leaders in that organization, all they think about is themselves. And like, they're really nation driven, and they can't think outside the box. And they focus on the black and white, and that was not me. I'm just like, nope, I'm going to operate in the gray all day long. So I didn't mesh with too many people over there. Probably butted heads because everybody in that organization is like a yes man, and I am not a yes man. I'd be like, oh, this is stupid. Why are we doing it? The regulation says so. Screw the regulations.
So one of the things that I heard a couple different times while I was in was that the warrant officer school was actually one of the tougher schools to kind of go through. Was that your experience, or how was warrant officer school?
So every time I talk about this pisses my wife off. She's a CW3, and she went through walks, and her experience and my experience completely different. She'll tell you it was the toughest school she's ever been to. All this stuff. Me, and I think it was because of the class I went through with. There was a bunch of Sergeant First classes going through. I think we had a Master Sergeant going through. There was a bunch of senior enlisted. Bro, it was a cakewalk. We didn't get smoked. We barely did PT. Like, it was just, they left us alone. But if you talk to my wife, and not just her, I've talked to other warrants too, and they're like, oh, we was doing rifle PT, we were doing this, we had, 10 seconds to get downstairs, all that. Bro, it was like I was in the geriatric class, and they left us alone. So, I mean, my experience was completely different.
What rank was your wife when she went through?
Staff sergeant at the time. So I was on the sergeant. It was me. I was on the sergeant first class on the master sergeant list. I think there was 5 others that were sergeant first class on the master sergeant list, and then you had an actual master sergeant in there. But you know what? You're going through school. That school with different MOSs, field artillery, aviation. So it was a good time. I bonded more with those guys. The field artillery guys is who I hung out with. I think there was 5 or 6 more CID agents that went through that course. I didn't hang out with any of those dudes because, we just didn't click. They'd sit around and be like, oh, this regulations late, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm down there like, let's play some spades. Who's got money? Let's go. Let's see what we got here, That's my mentality.
You were highly regarded as a non-commissioned officer. You were,
Hold up.
Audie Murphy.
By who? By who? Now, I can't say you.
By many. Your track record would prove that as well. Successful as a squad leader, drill sergeant, platoon sergeant, even a deployment as a platoon sergeant, whether you want to count it or as not. Going to the senior leader course, being a course chief, I believe they're the senior leader course. All the success you had as a non-commissioned officer, and then going warrant, but then also coming out on the master sergeant promotion list. Was there a regret there of not sticking with enlisted and having that role as a first sergeant?
I did do a little first time up at the NCO Academy, so I got a little taste of it. There for a while, I kind of regretted it, but the political climate the military's in right now, my leadership style, like I said, I was brought up by, my first platoon sergeant, Garth McDonald. That dude was a Desert Storm vet. So I was brought up, the 194 MP Company, Fort Campbell was completely different. The standards were different. You had standards. You were going to get your butt chewed if you didn't meet standards or worse. I mean, that's just the way it was. So that's kind of how my mentality was once I left there. And I care, you know this, being working with me. I mean, we had IG in our office every other day, that's just the way it was, and it went from being able to put somebody who couldn't clean their room up on the parade field in a pup tent to, well, you can't do that. That's their personal space.
Well, you probably have to go in there and clean it. You probably have to go in there and clean it for them.
You'd have to clean it for them, So the way the political environment had switched in the military, it just didn't. I couldn't adapt to it because that's not. I believed in standards, and I think it would have. I'd probably got in trouble down the road and been forced to either get out or retire a lot sooner. So, in that aspect, no. And becoming a warrant officer in CID, it did help me kind of transition and be prepared for that civilian lifestyle. I mean, I still struggle with it, as you know, every day at work, but it did help me in that aspect.
What is one of the most, whether it be funny, humorous, challenging? Is there an event in your career that just kind of stands out that you find yourself thinking back to more often than others?
In reality, it has nothing to do with me. It probably has more to do with you that I think about all the time. I recently was getting ready to go to PTA over there. That dude flipped our platoon. He flipped that trailer out there on the H1 highway. Of course, he didn't have a license. So then when we got to PTA, it was like, everybody had to go through all this training and all this stuff, all because of you. Your guy ripped the trailer.
That was a brutal couple of weeks. I would say very challenging.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy part was, I think I'd only been there a couple months, and when that happened, we're at PTA, I'm like, what did I get myself into? I get myself into at this place?
I tell you what, I don't know in my career if I lost respect for somebody as quickly as I did in that scenario over some lack of integrity. But anyways.
Yeah.
So you talked about just getting out and retiring. Is there anything, leading up to your retirement, that you wish you would have taken advantage of or done just a little bit differently to maybe make retirement a little bit easier?
I wish I had took full advantage of the time the Army gave you. I think now, you drop your retirement packet 2 years out. So, dropping that retirement packet and taking advantage of the programs that they offered you, and understanding a lot of it. Once you retire, all I'm thinking, about was like, man, I just can't wait for that day to get here. I didn't take advantage of the programs. Nobody to prepare you. Like, you don't, because once you do put in that packet, nobody, Army's not walking your hand, showing you how to do your retirement stuff. You just sit through briefs, and you're expected to do what you want to do. But other than that, I mean, just paying attention to what they're telling you and take advantage of the programs that are out there. Luckily, I had you that had retired previously, and my buddy Noe. I always called you guys and asked you guys, hey, what to do, and thankfully, what's it been? Dang, year and a half ago, June, July, I get a call from a guy who's just stressed out at work saying, hey man, I need your help, and he kind of got me in the door where I'm at today. So kudos to you. Appreciate that. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah, glad to have you again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting.
Before we, I'm going to give you your period to rant about politics here in a little bit. So just, bear with me for a little bit longer here. But before we leave your experience in the military, we've kind of briefly touched on your family and your kids and whatnot. What was kind of the takeaways of their military experience, and is there anything that you wish would have been a little bit different, or you think that they really benefited from?
I mean, what I wish would have been different is I would have found out, my ex-wife was as trashy as she was, and I divorced her before the 10-year mark, so she didn't take half my retirement. So, I mean, that happened. The kids, I mean, there's always regret not being able to spend time with them. I mean, that's the big thing. Like, you don't get to spend as much time. You miss out on a lot of them growing up. The benefit was, with me being gone so much, they did get to go back home. I mean, they would stay home, when I was on deployments. They got to be with my grandparents. They got to be with my mom. And then, once I got divorced, they've been here with me. And now I'm just taking advantage of that time. Like, not missing an event with my son. That's something to do with school. Basketball. He's a big basketball player. I go to every game, every scrimmage. So I feel like I'm making up for lost time. But yeah, that's the big regret is, I think you said it the last time we talked. Is just not being able to spend that time with them, and them not actually having a home. Every 3 years. It seemed like we were moving 3-5 years. We was moving, so just them not being able to have that home and that those relationships with their friends. Because every time they move, they have to make new friends. Or every time we move, we probably knew somebody in that unit. I mean, that's just how small our corps was. So, yeah, that's the big regret for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of downside, but one of the things, hopefully and it sounds like your kids did pick up is, with having to move every 3 years, you have to get real comfortable with kind of being uncomfortable and reintroducing yourself to a new group of friends, new environments. So hopefully, because all of your kids, all three of them are in the early stages of their adulthood, kind of serves them well as they kind of navigate life here. So hopefully there's some benefit to that.
The struggle. Okay, these girls of mine. I know you're experiencing probably something similar, but matter of fact, I know it's got to be. It's the girls. The girls they were the easiest to raise, but now that they're adults, I'm like, what are you doing? It's like my son was the most difficult to raise, and now he's got like, he's doing HVAC stuff and all this. So I'm like, and I'm looking at my girls like, you see what this guy's doing? Like, you be doing that too, So I get it.
So, just talking about the political climate, we talked about, I think we're probably 17, 18 days. We're probably, just 2 weeks away from the election when we post this video. Kind of the climate here in the U.S. What's your views on it, and what are you kind of looking forward to seeing how things play out?
Well, I just want to make this clear before we go any further. My opinions don't reflect anything on Big John Sutton or anybody outside this. This is my opinions and my opinions only. I got friends that are Democrats. I got friends that are Republican. We all get along, and that's one thing I think the world, the country should be doing. No matter if you're Democrat or Republican, don't let that crap get in between you and your friendships. I mean that it shouldn't be like that. But I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of either one of them on the ticket. To be honest with you, right? But if I got to look at it from my standpoint, I just look at the last 4 years, the economy, how we've kind of lost our stature in the world when it comes to being feared. Uh, I'm, how gas prices have gone up. I just don't see how we can continue down that path, right? If we keep the same party in office. On the other hand, I'm looking at, DJT and that side. I'm like, well, when he was in office, we did have a good economy, but, who the hell knows where he's going to go? You just don't know. I mean, that's the scary part with DJT. And then the scary part with the other side is we continue on the same path to where we're spending, $500 on groceries every week, which is terrible. It's terrible for me, and I make good money. You make good money, but I look at some of these the other citizens in this nation that can't afford stuff. I'm like, I don't know how they make it, man. $17, $18 an hour. They've raised the minimum wage. You got jobs that are paying $17, $18, $19 an hour, bro. That's nothing. That's nothing when you're paying $250, $300 for groceries. You're paying insurance. You're paying all this stuff. I don't know how some of these guys survive, to be honest. But I think it's a fine line, and that you as an individual, you got to decide what's the most important thing for you. And I do think this country's gotten soft. I see this. I'll give you a prime example. People don't know how to handle adversity anymore because we're always giving them a way out. Oh, okay, it's okay. A guy at work this past week, this dude can't handle adversity. And what's he do? He just comes in and just quits. And now it falls on everybody else. Right? That's the way. That's where our society has gone. And we're afraid to fire people. We can't get quality workers. It's just, I think we got to kind of go take a step back and kind of get back to some old school ways, not necessarily in a negative way, but in a good way. Stop handing out a bunch of freebies and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I can't say that I'm a huge fan of either on the ticket. I mean, I know where I'm voting just based off policies. But I tell you what, I think of two people that I really kind of wish, one is partially running and one has attempted to run. Two people that I really kind of do like, which is odd because they're both coming from the Democratic Party, even though they're not really Democratic anymore. Tulsi Gabbard and RFK.
Man, I said the same thing.
I like both of those.
Yeah. Hey, dude. I mean, it's crazy, but I don't know if you remember when Bill Clinton and Bush one ran, right? That's the first time Bill got elected. You remember old Ross Perot?
Oh yeah,
bro. If that dude would have ran today, Ross Perot would be the president. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, he was talking about legalizing weed then. You know what I mean?
That was a while ago.
It was a while ago. I mean, and that's one good perk about being retired from the military now is if you want to dibble dabble in some Mary Jane, you can. You know what I mean? So I think look at some of this stuff, and it seems so simple, but politics have a way of making it difficult. They really do, and really at the end of the day, it's to benefit themselves, and that's what we got to take a look at. Is who's less likely to benefit from us putting them in there? I mean,
yeah, I tell you what, it's
take advantage of it.
It's kind of crazy. I know my probably the first 16 years I was in the service, I never heard anybody talk about politics or anything, even leading up to the elections. The only thing I ever remember hearing was just vote Republican because they're the ones voting for your pay raises.
Yeah, the pay raise.
And that was about it. But now, I mean, I remember my last 4 or 5 years in, I mean, it was no different than what was going on outside the service. Everybody was just dominated by politics and what was Trump going to say next or what was he going to do next. Or
bro, I remember I was working up here at Misco at Fort Leonard Wood. I was working up at the schoolhouse. When Donald Trump got elected, there was officers that didn't even come in the next day because they were so distraught. I mean, it was that bad. And I'm just like, I mean, we don't even know what's about to take place, but because it was somebody that I don't know was different, I guess people just had to. Whichever we do need different every now and then. You know, I don't know if we need crazy different all the time, but we do need different. We do need
It's good to
different.
shake things up.
It's good to shake things up, but I've been talking about that, and it's only here in Missouri. That proposition. I think it's Proposition 3 or Amendment 3. You see signs going all over the road that says no to Prop. I think it is Prop 3. No to Prop 3. But if you don't read the fine print, I mean, it is talking about, uh, you know, stuff that these schools can do with our children without their permission. I'm telling you, dig into it, and you're gonna be like, this is absurd. Like, there's no way the state should be able to control what I'm doing with my kid and not tell me about it. You know what I mean? But if you really dig into that proposition and you read what they're trying to do in that proposition, you'd lose your mind. There's no way you'd vote yes on that thing. But I mean, that's just me.
So what do you think the future of the military is kind of going?
I know you think it's the strongest military still today in this world, but let me tell you something. We got some of the biggest wussies in there I've ever seen in my life since I've been. And it starts with our leadership. The leadership in the military literally have lost their balls somewhere along the way. And I really don't know why. Well, I do know why. It has everything to do with politics. I might lose my job, or someone's going to file a sexual harassment thing against me because I looked at it the wrong way, or I made a bad joke, or this. We're in the month of May, and I'm not, in line with whatever we're celebrating, because now every month there's a celebration for something. Some ridiculous thing just so we can keep the masses happy. But you look at it, the way we're training people now. You go to basic training, there's a 2-week grace period where drill sergeants can't even yell at the kids. There's no molding and shaping them anymore. And then even when they get to their units, I mean, I just think there's been a real lack of leadership from the officer side and the enlisted side, and it's trickled down. And it just, it irritates the piss out of me because I feel like what we had going worked and made stronger people, strong leaders, and we had a system in place where soldiers knew how to handle adversity. They could make decisions on their own, and now you ain't got that, man. And I look at everybody's like, oh, look at what Israel just bombed Hamas or whatever. Good for them, because you know what? They're doing something we ain't got the balls enough to do. I hope they wipe them out because we ain't gonna do nothing. I mean, that's the reality of it. And if we did, I'd be afraid to send the soldiers we got over there to fight. I mean, half of them would probably run and hide. That's honestly my opinion. What I see.
I tell you what, I kind of think I just got back from AUSA this past week, and it was kind of crazy. I went and visited Axon, the booth Axon, and they had a cool little setup here. It was a VR, and it took you through all the different eras and the evolution of armament and weapons that have been used. And it was really kind of cool. But when you walk around and you look at all the vehicle platforms and weapon platforms that are out there, and kind of what the direction the Army, the military is kind of going, it's all unmanned vehicles. It's less armament and more sensors, more detection sensors, more remote control weapon systems. Really kind of taking the soldier out of the battlefield, off the battlefield.
I mean, which I think is great because from an Army standpoint, they're not focused on training; they're focused on getting a new PT uniform again. I seen that. Like we went through BDUs, DCUs, ACUs, OCPs. There's 4 different uniforms right there since me and you were in. And then the PTs, we had the marshmallows, we had the, little track suit, jumpsuit, windbreaker thing, whatever. Then you had this black crap, and now they're coming out with another. they're putting their focus in on completely the wrong thing instead of going. They need to go back to the basics. Go back to the basics.
I'll tell you one thing they did get right, though. I did see there at the trade show. I don't even know what they're calling the new dress uniform for the Army, but the long brown leather boots that you are authorized to wear with that new dress uniform look
Yeah,
sharp.
yeah. I mean,
Looks
that,
real sharp.
they did. I mean, on that aspect, I mean, crap. You think about when we first came in, our dress uniform was, a big green turd looking thing, made out of wool. So
Yeah.
I mean, they have come a long way when it comes to the dress uniform, but I just think they got to get back to the basics and start developing leaders that know how to handle adversity and know how to handle different situations. I look back at our time and all the situations we had to handle. Not only did we have to handle our personal life, but we had to handle each and every soldier's personal life as well. And then on top of that, the stuff the military did. And I don't think there's leaders out there that are capable enough to do that. And that's why we're seeing a lot of the stuff we're seeing inside the United States Army right now. Or I shouldn't say Army, but the military as a whole. That's because you don't have those types of leaders anymore. It's
No,
become
that's
more individual.
fair point. Is there anything else you want to kind of talk about here about either about your service or kind of what's going on right now?
Uh, just in
Is there anything with your retirement? Is there any projects or anything crazy you're kind of looking forward to?
I mean, this podcast is a big one I look forward to each and every week. Just so I do appreciate everybody tuning in, but if anything, it just gives me and probably you the same thing like that. Uh, we get to express some emotions and talk about stuff we probably don't get to normally talk about, especially at work. So, the podcast, and then my son's basketball season starting up, so I'm really excited about that. And I mean, I think I bought a truck last year, a little hybrid truck. I've already got 60,000 miles on it, and I've had it a year. So looking forward to putting another 60,000 on it this year. Uh, I'm back into my old road currently right now at the place we work at. So I'm kind of excited to be back in that. I developed a lot of stuff and being back into that and getting that back up and running. And outside that, not really, man. Well, I think I might buy me a Jeep this spring. And at one time, I was like, I'm going to get me a Harley. I wanted to get a Harley. And I don't think my wife was too excited about that, being 40 years old. So I think I finally talked her into us getting a Jeep so we can just get a used Jeep and take the doors off and top off and just,
It's not a
go.
Jeep. You don't need a Jeep. I'll tell
Well,
you what you need.
I ain't driving your old Electra or whatever you got.
Yeah, we both need to get some side by sides. You can take the doors off that.
I got four
It,
wheelers already. I want something where I can just go away from the house without having to maybe pull stuff. So, I mean, my goal. Listen, man, I've told my wife this. I mean, I really do have this big goal. I want to go out to Yellowstone. I want to be able to take like a Jeep or motorcycle out there, spend like 2 weeks on the river, and just you know, I'll have to take a break from the podcast. I don't want any like electronics or anything like that. So that's all I want
you're gonna
before I.
you're gonna have to get that Starlink and join remote each week for the podcast.
Oh man, I just want to go out there and disconnect so bad. I just want to go somewhere and disconnect. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big
Yep, no,
goal
I
of
don't
it.
blame you.
Oh, you've been out there what, a couple years ago, 3 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, I went up there about two years ago,
I
middle of
tell
winter. It's
I'll tell you what we need to do. Listen, we got the Cookie Monster at work, Big Alan Cook. We got Mr. Barry Craig at work. We need to get those guys to have a guys' weekend and them to fund it all. You don't need to pay for anything. If Alan Cook can spend that money on that OU golf cart and cruise it around up there in Richland or St. Louis, he can get us a trip to Yellowstone.
sure he can.
Yeah, I'm sure he can too. But
Well,
nah,
Cody, before we close it out here, you got anything else?
man, that's it. Like I said, I'm just excited and appreciate everybody tuning in and hearing us just ramble on and talk about few things. Really do appreciate that.
Yep. No, and anybody out there, if you're interested in joining us on an episode, or maybe you just got a story you'd like for us to kind of share with the audience, Phil, in the description below, there's an email address for Battlefield Banter Podcast at gmail.com. Just hit us up, and if you're liking the videos, please like, share, and subscribe.